Welcome, everybody, to the City of Farmers Branch study session for Tuesday, September 10th. Our first order of business will be item C1, discuss regular agenda items. Councilman Baird has made request to move item J10 from consent to regular agenda. J10 will become L7.
Thank you.
Anything else, Councilman?
Welcome. I got it. Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No
I thought
problem.
you were
Anything
making
else?
a general. No, sir. Thank you.
All righty.
My apologies.
Quite all right. Councilman Reed?
Nothing at this time?
Councilman Roman?
Nope.
Councilman Neal?
No, sir.
Councilman Jackson?
Nothing at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Next up was item C2, receive presentation regarding the contract renewal with the city's health plan, United Medical Resources. Hold on before we get into that. Since we now have to have an opportunity for citizen comment at study session, I don't have anybody signed up to speak. So seeing none, we will move on to item C2, which is receive presentation regarding the contract renewal with City's Health Plan, United Medical Resources, and ProAct for medical assurance for 2025.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Yoko Matsumoto, Director of Human Resources. Today here I have Lance Pendley. He is our partner with McGriff. McGriff is our consultant that works with us on our medical and pharmacy plans. So today he's going to give you an overview of what we're looking at for 2024 and proposals for 2025. I will go ahead and share the space with Lance.
Thanks, Yoko. Mayor, members of council, Lance Pendley with McGriff. Thanks for having me today. We've got a very brief presentation here. I did want to spend just a little bit of time about who McGriff is and the account contacts that work on the account. We're going to talk about the Health Claims Fund 604, which is part, obviously, of the budgeted expenses for the next fiscal year. Although our plan does run on a calendar year, January 1st through December 31st. Talk about the current and renewal premiums, the fiscal year comparison, and then the premium changes that we're proposing for fiscal year 24-25 that'll go into effect January 1st. Just a little bit on McGriff. My particular focus is in the public entity space. I work with 15 cities, primarily here in the Metroplex. Have been working with McGriff since 2007. Dallas is our public entity hub for employee benefits and risk management. So McGriff employees from around the country come to our office when they have needs around the municipality space, and it's a pleasure to be working with you. We've been working with the City of Farmers Branch since 2010. But just a little bit of stats on McGriff. We are the 7th largest broker in the country. And these are my account contact information. My contact information is here, as well as Ryan Wiggins and Christina Palacios that work with me on your account. We support the city. We work primarily with HR. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions at any time. So I wanted to supply that information to everyone. Just an overview on, what we do here at the City of Farmers Branch. And I did present last November. We presented the stop loss renewal to the City Council and got approval for that. But we are a self-insured medical and pharmacy program. So the city takes on risk on any individual that would include employees, spouses, children, up to $150,000. And then we have reinsurance that covers our cost over that. We have a stop loss carrier in place right now. Our medical claims are administered by United Healthcare. We are on their UMR platform, which is a more flexible platform. It gives us the ability to carve out pharmacy like we do, carve out stop loss, and do kind of some unique things that we have here at the city. We do have only one plan. We have a high deductible health plan with an HSA account or a health savings account. And then the city does contribute seed money to that health savings account on behalf of employees. You'll see the different amounts here: $500 for employee only, $750 if you have a spouse or a child on the plan, and then $1,000 if you have 2 or more people on the plan. And then the plan design itself is very competitive. It's a $2,000 deductible for individuals. And then we administer the pharmacy through ProAct. That's something that's procured every couple of years. We've got a very competitive arrangement with ProAct Pharmacy. And once again, like I said, that space is continuing to change. We do, and we will be bringing to council for approval some contracts in October with some newly negotiated rates, both for ProAct and United Healthcare. And we're in the middle of, I think we're in the 3rd or the 4th year of those deals. So we will be most likely procuring and doing RFPs for those services, as Yoko mentioned, for, I believe, for 1/1/2026. So here are the current rate structure. This is a little bit different. I just want to remind everyone, there's a budget. We have a budget 604, but then there's what we call our advertised rates, or our rates that are placed into our booklets and from a funding perspective. Those are two kind of totally separate things. So these rates that I'm showing here to you may not, although they're very close, they may not be reflective of the 604 fiscal year budget for the health fund. But like I said, we try to keep those very close. You have a 3-tier rate structure right now. You can see the total funding. If you look at the employee onlys that we have on the plan are 180. If they have one spouse or one child, we have 46 people that have that coverage, and then 140 people that buy, basically employee family. So employee plus 2 or more. And then you see the current rates that we've built, once again, advertised rates. You see the city's contribution there, and then you see the employee-only rates. The $55.56 was what an employee-only pays, $233.34 if you employee plus 1, and then $350 if you have employee plus 2 or more. And you can see down at the bottom of the page, this is a really kind of thing that we look at a lot, is what is the employer-employee split? And right now, as the advertised rates, it's an 82-18 split between the City of Farmers Branch and the employees. Once again, very competitive. I would tell you your peers range from anywhere from 75-25 in employer-employee ratio up to 85-15. So you guys are really right there in the mix as far as cost allocations between employer and employee. All right, let's talk about the health fund for a little bit, 604. So the budgeted expenses for fiscal year 25 are $5.426 million. That's actually just a slight reduction off the 23-24 budget. The claims, appear to be running fine. Finance, I assume some adjustments were made just because of, funding was appropriate even in the current fiscal year. And then the budget includes the primary the primary expenses in the budget are medical and pharmacy claims themselves. So somebody goes to the doctor, has a medical expense or a pharmacy expense. Those are the primary costs. You do pay for stop loss premiums, as I mentioned. We only carry risk up to $150,000, and then we have an insurance carrier that carries risk above that. And then our administrative fees that we pay to UMR, they pay our claims. They give us access to the United Healthcare Network, which is a very robust network here, not only in DFW, but nationwide. So our employees have access to those provider networks nationwide. National trends. So I jokingly tell people that we talk a lot about inflation right now, but I've been dealing with inflation in my business for 23 years, and I've been in the business for 23 years. Healthcare expenses rarely go down, and right now, combined medical and pharmacy inflation is in that 8 to 10% range. So when we do fiscal year and calendar year projections for y'all, we are taking into account those trend increases that we're seeing out there in the marketplace. And once again, you can mitigate those inflationary increases with plan design changes, with premium increases, et cetera. There's, a lot of things to do there, but with no changes to current plan designs, you should expect those inflationary increases in the 8 to 10% range. Changes to cost allocation strategy required to keep up with inflationary trends. So that's one of the things that we're going to talk about here in a minute, that we are proposing an increase to the employees for January 1st. We'll talk about that, work with them during open enrollment on how those changes impact them. But in order to, kind of keep up with these budgeted annual expenses, we are proposing premium increases. That premium increase right here, you kind of see it a little bit differently, kind of the similar structure from the previous slide I showed you. We are increasing the overall rates. So the total funding rates you see in that total rates category, we have increased those by 13%, really to match with what the budget is for fiscal year 25. Once again, it's not necessarily like I just showed you. We're seeing basically a flat budget from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25, but we're trying to get these funding rates up to par. And then you see the employer-employee contributions and the cost allocation increases. So you'll see the city's taken on a majority of these rate increases or funding rates that we're showing. I think we're taking on 75% of the increase at the city, but the employees will see in every tier a slight increase January 1st. So $18.06 for employee only, $36.11 for employee plus one, and $54.17 for an employee plus two or more. So once again, we're trying to stay aligned with industry standards here. If the city continues to bear the burden of these trend increases, we will start taking our overall contributions up above, I think, those benchmarked numbers that I gave you between 75-25 split and 85-15. So we're just trying to, kind of stay on track there as far as what we're doing moving forward. That's all I've got. I'm here to answer questions for the council.
I'd like to say a few
Yes, ma'am.
words.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to make sure that it was notated that we are asking for an increase this year. The last time employees saw a premium increase was in 2014. So 2014, that set of the $55 to $233, that was actually established in 2014, and since then there has been no rate increases on the insurance. So this would be the first increase in about 10 years. And looking at the cost of the plans, when I looked at the data from 2014, I'm going to just use my hands here. The plan was about a $3.6 million plan. 2014. You hit 2015, it went down to like a 3.5. So it went down a little. But after that, each year it went up, it went up, it went up. In 2019, it dropped, but it was still higher than it was in 2014. And now we're going up to a 3.9. What we're estimating for 2024 is a $4.7 million plan, and then moving into 25 is a $5.2 million plan. So after all those 10 years of you're seeing the total plan cost increasing, and no premiums have changed. So that had to be covered somewhere, right? So I just wanted to make that a point that 2014 there was that set price, and it hasn't increased or decreased since then. So this is the first change in over 10 years. So now we'll open the floor for more questions. I just wanted to make sure, kind of brought that to your attention. Questions?
All right, questions, Councilman Baird?
No, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Reed?
I do not.
Councilman Roman? Councilman Neal?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Yoko, tell me how many overall employees we have in the city overall total?
So the number of employees that are subscribers on the plan are.
No, just total employees, on
Oh.
the plan or not?
Full-time employees?
All employees, however you count them.
I would say 415 full-time, part-time about 100, so I would say about 500.
About 515 total, okay. And of that, according to the document here, 366 have some plan aspect of it.
Right,
Okay.
that's how many subscribers we have, and I would say how many belly buttons on the plan, which would be total dependent spouses.
Sure.
We run about 860, somewhere around there.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Yoko, was that 415 or 450 for employees?
415 for full-time. And I would
415.
415, yes, sir. And I would stick with the full-time because that's who gets insurance coverage. I wouldn't count the part-time. But yeah, about 415 on average is what we have. Sometimes it'll drop down to 400, 405, so between 400 and 415.
Okay,
And then 366 is what we have as subscribers, employees on the plan, and then 826 belly buttons on the plan.
thank you. Councilman Jackson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Oko. Can we go back one slide to the proposed premiums?
Yes, sir.
So we're changing the structure. Today it's employee only, employee plus one, whether it's a spouse or one child, and then employee plus two or more.
Yes, sir.
The proposal is to go employee only, employee and spouse, right? Is that what ES is, or is that
I apologize, yeah, it should be E plus one.
E plus one?
Which would
Okay.
be a spouse or a child, Councilman.
Okay, all right, very good. That's what I wanted to
Yes, sir.
understand, because that single mother with a kid, the cost would be pretty substantially
Yes, sir.
increased if it was now.
We did look at some different rate structures during this process, and we've opted to kind of stick with we are sticking with the current rate structure that we have in place. So thanks for the clarification.
Yep.
Yeah, it's E plus one and E plus two or more.
Okay, all right, very good. That's all I have. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question, and that is, I remember having this discussion with our former city manager years ago, and I was told that employees were paying a third of their health insurance premium. But that's not what's indicated here. If I'm understanding your data, employee is only paying 11%, employee plus one is paying 21%, and E plus two plus is paying 21% of the premiums.
Mayor, I think over the years, as kind of Yoko has pointed out, and I don't know at what point you had that conversation with the prior city manager, but what has happened is we've had inflationary increases. The employees have not taken on any increases, so those numbers have gone from 65-35 up to 80-20, or whatever the numbers we're looking at
Okay.
today.
But no matter how we slice this apple, our premium is still going to be $5.2 million.
Right.
All right?
Yes, sir.
And so that's a big exposure to the city.
Right.
Granted, we have more employees now than we have had in the past, but does that premium change on a quarterly basis based on number of employees, or are we paying 5.2 where we have 800 total in the program, or what if it drops to 700? Are we still on the
The
hook for-
premiums won't change for the employees. They change once every 12 months.
The city is what the city is contracted for, which is the total rate of 5.2. Will that change, or are we set for a year no matter how many employees we have?
No, it fluctuates based on your enrollment, so it's a great question from you. What we're doing here is putting in a budgeted expense projection, a lot like kind of what your budget process looks like for a lot of your other items, but we are looking at your historical information. We're looking at your historical enrollment, and we're trying to project what that's going to look like in 2025. If we add 20 more employees, that $5.2 million that I'm showing you here, that's going to go up, right? Because we've got 20 more employees on the plan. If it goes 20 down, then we may see a budgetary impact in a positive way.
Okay, so I want to understand, you put this together based on 366
Yes, sir.
participants,
Subscribers.
Employees.
employee participants,
Yes, sir.
okay? But yet, we have 415 full-time employees. So can you explain the difference, the delta between the two? Are employees, some opting to not participate in the program?
Exactly. So all of their information is based on historical data. They look at it either a 36-month or a 12-month. We tend to like to look at the 12-month look back. And so I think the 12-month look back, it was 364. So this year we're looking at 366. I mean, that might fluctuate. All of this is predictions, right? If we have a bad year where we have employees, maybe 10 employees have high stop loss. I mean, last year in 23, we had 8 come out through our stop loss. Again, we're only due to $150,000 of that because after that, the stop loss covers it. But it just depends. So this is not set in stone. It depends on how many people. Let's say we get 20 more people on the plan. I personally take my husband's insurance, so I'm a person who works here, but I'm not on the plan because I take that plan. But if something happens where my husband no longer has insurance, then I would move into the plan on a family plan. And so all of this is kind of an art of looking back at the data and making predictions about what we're going to look for in 25. Maybe we have a great year, which I'm hoping our employees do great stuff, and our claims fall, and it's a $4.7 million plan instead of a 5.2. Then yay for us because we have extra cushion there to cover when it is a high plan.
So I just want to make sure I understand this, because I have a resident who asked me specifically
Okay.
about this.
Sure.
So, you just said something that was very interesting. Well, let me back up. I'm going to ask my first question. Do we pay a separate premium for the stop loss?
Yes, we do.
And how much is that?
Five.
No, I've got the information here. It is baked into this 5.2 million, Mayor.
Okay, so that's
part of-
included?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
sir, and
included.
it is
all right.
included in your budget,
Okay.
your 604 budget. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's just say we have a good year, everybody's healthy, and claims don't come in close to our premium amount. We're not getting any rebate back, but would we see a lower total premium for 25, 26 possibly?
Well, we would possibly look at that, but I don't know that we would be changing premiums that quickly from one year to the next. This is so UMR, we were in a 3-year contract with 2 annual renewals. So what we're doing here is we're proposing, let's go ahead and do 2 years of renewals, and then after that 2 years, then we'll go out to RFP. And so we'll look at plan designs and possibly adding, maybe we can add another plan. We're just needing to look at what's out there after this 2-year renewal, and then you might possibly see some changes in premiums. But I wouldn't say changing it this year and then next year. I'm just not used to that quick of a change in the premium.
Okay. You have anything you want to add?
I was just going to say, for mayor and council, as you heard from the team here, is we haven't had an increase to the employees in 10 years, and it's a partnership with the employees in the city. So I asked to get to a ratio that starts putting it back in what the industry balance should be. And I believe, I don't want to misquote, but it was around 80-20, but you see we're a little bit above that 80 mark, where it's 82% city, 18% employees. So by going to a 75% city, 25% employees on the increases, it'll slowly bring those numbers back into alignment. So we're slowly sharing that cost burden for the first time in a long time with this proposal as well. But it's a slow descent back to that alignment because it was a long journey into this alignment. So to get out of it, it's going to take a little bit of time over a couple of years as we start to get there.
Okay, so I'll ask the elephant in the room question. You know, private sector employees typically pay about 30% of their insurance premium, employee share, and, which is not unusual, so, so I guess what I was told, not by you, but by another city manager, was very incorrect.
So we compare against other cities, and that's our market group. The private sector sways quite a bit. A lot of times, private sector insurance is a lot stronger, has a lot better benefits, and sometimes has much lower to zero premium. So you see why our employees don't all participate. It's because, and some participate differently. Like I'm on here by myself. My wife and kids are on my wife's insurance because it's a much stronger insurance plan for what they pay in a private sector company. So there's give and takes. Our market that we compare with is going to be other cities, and that's what they do. They go and look at other cities and what the employees are paying there versus what the city pays versus the employee, and trying to make sure we're in the right arena and right area for our employees to have that right balance. So the private sector is not really a good benchmark for us on this one.
Okay.
Because their plans are usually not only high deductible, which is its own unique
Okay.
alignment.
Well,
And I would like to point out on our plan, Lance had it in his presentation, but I want to kind of highlight it. We contribute, our city contributes to the HSA, which I think is not very common in the public sector. $500 for an employee only, the city contributes that to the HSA. $750 for employee plus one, and employee plus two is $1,000 a year that the city contributes to those HSA plans. And it offsets some of that cost as well.
okay. Well, I appreciate you clearing that up for me. Councilman Baird, you had a question?
You have something too?
I do as well, but go ahead.
So regarding employees, like your example with your husband, are you able to add on in the middle of the year, or do you have sign-up periods?
We do have open enrollment
All the
where, yeah, so that will be launching in November. So employees can come onto the plan. New employees can sign on. They have 30 days to sign on, 31 days to sign on as they're new. Now, if I have a life event that I need to make the change, then that allows for me to do that. So employees, if they have a qualifying life event, somebody loses a job, they lose their insurance, they have a baby, all those kind of qualify, we're allowed to get them on that plan at that time. They have 30 days from that time. So if my husband loses his insurance, then I have time, 30 days. I just go to my HR person and say, hey, I need insurance now, and I'm able to enroll and pick a plan.
Okay, so I misunderstood the beginning. So there is just a set period each year when you can sign up, okay? And then how does the city pay monthly? So meaning out of the total budget for the year, are we paying each month? And does that fluctuate up and down each
Paying
month?
to UMR?
Yes.
So-
Oh, yeah, we
yeah.
invoiced.
Yeah, so on a weekly basis, because we're self-funded, we do have monthly premiums that we pay. We pay UMR a monthly administrative premium, and we pay the stop-loss insurance carrier a monthly premium. By the way, Mayor, that premium is $650,000 a year, and once again, we'll see y'all in November for approval of that agreement. But the claims, which make up a majority of the budget for both medical and pharmacy, we get a weekly check run, and we pay those claims weekly.
Okay.
So in aggregate, we hope that over the course of the year, we're going to meet this $5.2 million obligation. It could fluctuate weekly, monthly, based on, there is some volatility having a self-funded health plan. We may have a high month, we may have a low month.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, and when you say $5.2 million obligation,
What?
that's your estimate of,
Yes,
Right.
that's
Because
my estimate. It's
if the rarity of rarities happened and nobody got any health care other than their yearly checkup, like,
right.
then that
We-
number would be,
And by the way, I think in finance getting into but I think if there's money left over, that goes into, there's an accrual there at the end of the year. So if the full budget is not spent, that money then goes into an accrual. really know the fund balance. I was looking for the term there. I should know that. I say that all the time.
Very good.
But we do carry a fund balance as well for any overages or surpluses that we have in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
So the discussion's kind of spurred some more questions. Yoko, you were talking about spouse covered, not covered. Is there a surcharge on our policy for if I'm an employee of the company or of the city and my spouse is employed somewhere else and there's insurance available to her, but I choose to put her on my insurance? Is there a surcharge for that?
We currently do not charge the surcharge. That is a discussion that we do have in regards to, let's say if we're looking to shave some costs off the plan. That's always one of the discussions is spouses, as you know, in that world. So that's one option. We were actually talking about that this year, but we've decided at this point, we're just going to maintain what we have, increase to try to meet what the proposed budget is from a 4.7 million plan to a 5.2, and maybe deeper discussions when we're looking at an RFP going out.
Right. So I think that's becoming more common, at least in the private
Yeah.
sector, but I understand that we benchmark against other municipalities, and that's a
Right.
more appropriate benchmark. Are there incentives for healthy activities? Get a physical, go to the dentist, attend a
Yes.
seminar online?
So
something like
that is part of our budget as well, because we have a wellness program, and it's the Goose Chase. So Bianca hosts events or educational sessions, try to do it monthly, and employees will get on that app, and if they participate, they gain points. And they can get up to $700, $750, $700 into their HSA, if spouse and husband complete that, or wife,
And
or
that's
partner.
in addition to
Exactly.
the contributions on,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah.
I mean, my company also contributes to my HSA, but I pay about twice the premium. So,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
So just as we think about this, just maybe put this in more concrete terms for people who are doing their own budget at home. We pay about $430,000 a month for insurance premium. It's not cheap. It's a big
And
expense to the city.
I was looking at the data for 2023 because we have a full set data there. And again, it's January, December. So we're towards the latter part of our 24 year, which most people have met their premiums, they met their out of pocket, so they're going to the doctor, right? So those usually shoot up. But looking at 2023, 67% of our costs were medical claims, and then 12% were pharmacy. So that's where the bulk is. The other fixed fees, that's 11% of it, but it's that medical piece. And so what we do, we meet with McGriff on a quarterly basis, and we're looking to see what are the type of things that our money's like going to, like musculoskeletal, that's our number one. We had about $945,000 on claims that went to that type of injury. So McGriff is great about kind of showing us where the dollar is going. And then Bianca will work on, let's get a program in to focus on these areas where our claims are going. So that's something that's just interesting that we look at.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So, so Ben, you mentioned that when you're looking at coverage, you benchmark with only other municipalities and you exclude the private sector, right?
I'll have to ask.
That's our benchmark.
Yeah, I think the city manager said that correctly, that we really are focused on our peers in the municipality sector. McGriff, we do a lot of business with employers in the private sector too. So we can, when we're meeting with Yoko and Ben and talking through strategic things, we can give them information on kind of employer-employee splits in the private sector and stuff like that. I don't only work on municipal business, so we can have those conversations in those quarterly meetings. But really, when it comes to comparing ourselves, we really need to compare against our municipal peers because we're competing for talent for police and fire, other administrative areas, Public Works, Parks and Rec. So we want to look at what Carrollton's doing, what Coppell's doing, Grapevine, some of the folks that would be competing with you for your talent, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely makes sense, but one would argue that you're also competing in the private sector
Right.
for people that could leave the
Right.
public sector to the private sector.
Right.
And in fact, that's not an original argument that I just thought of. It was the same argument that was used to rationale for why when we did a market study for salary raises, why we looked at private and public data. So where I'm a little confused is why there's a I guess a different approach used for one, like for looking at salaries, we looked at private and public, but then when we look at benefits, we're only looking at public. Can you help me understand that?
We're happy to look at both. I was at City of Burleson, meeting with their city council last night. We looked at 15 municipalities. We didn't look at any private sector accounts. I'm happy at Ben's direction or Yoko or the city council's direction. We're happy to benchmark you against private sector peers. We would need direction from you on who those peers would be, because we've got blue collar, we've got gray collar, we've got white collar. What industries will we be looking at and that type of stuff. So with further direction from you, we would be happy to pursue those measures as well.
Right. So why is there an inconsistency so far? Like what was the logic behind that? Like that's what I want to know.
Sure. I'm not sure that I have a clear answer for you. My experience in looking at plans for medical plans tend to be we're looking at our competitors. In regards to positions, I would say I could have an administrative assistant here or any 10 companies that are in the private sector. But the insurances, we just never done that. It's not a practice that we do. But if that is a direction you want to go, I think that's an interesting direction, but it would open a lot. Like my insurance that I get for full family coverage is $0. I pay $10 copay and I pay nothing for it. My deductible is $200 and my out-of-pocket max is $2,000. So that's what you're going to get. There's just no way a city can compete with that.
Right. But one could make the same argument about the salary raises. And you see where I'm going? Like you can't do one thing in one respect and then to an adjacent respect apply a different standard. From my experience, just from working with people's finances for a living for over 10 years now, it's usually, from what I've seen, is salaries tend to be much more overinflated in the private sector than benefits are. And so it seems to me that if I can't understand or follow the logic between a different standard being applied for different things, what it looks like is that you're cherry picking for salaries to be overinflated by including the private market data. But then when you look at the benefits, you're right. So that's the way it looks.
Well, I appreciate your feedback.
Not saying that's what it is, but that's what it looks like.
I appreciate that perspective. And if that's a direction council would like to go, then we could move forward with that just by you guys letting us know what you want. But thanks for the perspective, because I didn't really think about it till
I
now.
think one thing to add clarification on this one, when they're comping health plans, they're doing a specific health plan for a specific employer. When they're comping positions and rates, they're doing job families, which is a little bit more broader approach, and they're looking at data that's coming from federal sources. Here, we would have to cherry pick companies. So which companies do we comp against, because we don't have that same data set. So absolutely heard on the feedback. We can add some of those feedbacks to kind of show high and low in the private sector, but that's why they applied that one. It was much easier correlation to show job families that exist across the spectrum, public and private. Healthcare doesn't exist in that same essence, so we'll look at some bigger companies, some smaller companies, some similar to size of Farmers Branch, and see what that shows for numbers for the council to look at as well.
So Ben, what I would suggest, and I'm gonna concur with Councilman Roman to an extent, we don't work for the city. Most of the people paying attention tonight don't work for the city. So they're comparing, the public costs of insurance, which is a big ticket item for everyone, to what they're paying, which is in the private sector. There's two different things going on here. There's pricing for the insurance, which is what you've been referring to. There's an actuarial determination that, says you've got firefighters and police officers, they have dangerous jobs. Where I work, we don't have dangerous jobs, I would say. But the other part of this equation is, what's the split between the city's costs and the employees' costs? And I think that that's kind of where, correct me if I'm wrong, you're kind of looking at it as well. You're saying, well, gosh, like I said a moment ago, I pay twice what employees here pay for their employee-only coverage. If I brought my wife over because she has insurance available somewhere else, I'd pay a $50 a month surcharge. That's $600 a year. So there's some big differences and big gaps. My employer contributes to HSA. We have wellness incentives as well. I think it just might help the council to at least understand a little bit of the private sector perspective when we're evaluating the costs and the splits of the annual premiums here.
I know, one, we got to move on, but two, I think we're covering some really good ground. I think we're all learning a lot today. One point I was going to say is, and I wanted to ask, with 366, that's the benchmark number that you're using. Okay, 366. When you all are putting insurance plan together for a city, and Councilman Jackson said it, nailed my point. We have police officers, we have firefighters, we have public works people that are working on heavy machinery. We don't have that many true administrators out of the 366, okay? So are those, let's say, heavy jobs, for lack of a better term, non-administrative, are they costed more in a program than the administrative side? Granted, it all goes into creating an overall program or overall cost. So that was question number one. Number two is, just because we have 366 employees, if we went out and compared some other employer that had similar number of employees, but maybe it's a call center. They're all sitting at a cubicle answering phones. They're not fighting crime, putting out fires, working heavy machinery. Those might cost less to insure, because what are the chances of them hurting their back or breaking an arm or a leg on the job?
Right.
So I'm just curious if that sort of weighs into.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We do not drill down to specific departments or anything like that when we're looking at claims data. I'll tell you that healthcare costs have no specific departments. We see large claims, and frankly, we see healthy people in every department as well. So the first question is, no, we don't drill down to that level of detail for you guys. And there probably, Mayor, there probably is some correlation between the type of industry you work in and the cost associated with that health plan, whether it's a self-funded plan or a fully insured plan. And we do, once again, we can provide some benchmark data around that. In general, our white-collar jobs probably spending less, as Councilman Jackson's company spending less per employee than, maybe a blue-collar manufacturer. The answer is probably yes, globally. But then there's going to be some individual customers within those sects that are experiencing bad claims, because cancer doesn't, discriminate between somebody on a floor manufacturing a vehicle versus sitting at a teller at a bank. So you make some good points. I think globally, probably blue collar, gray collar, slightly more expensive than a white collar type job, but that's going to be variable. But once again, information we can bring back at a later date to the council.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then just one last clarification, the point I was trying to make is I think that we just need to have a consistent approach. Whatever it is, it just needs to be consistent. I've always thought that both salary data as well as benefit data should always be benchmarked against our peers and not necessarily including everybody else, but that's just my opinion. So just wanted to make sure that I clarified that. I'm not asking for any additional work on this to see any private data, if the council would like to see it. I'm certainly supportive of that, but certainly not requesting it. I just wanted to make sure that moving forward, we have a consistent approach when we look at these things. That's it.
Very good, thank you.
We
Anything
have,
else?
yeah, we're not requesting any motion or anything. We're going to bring this back in October to finalize the renewal for these contracts. We just wanted to get questions asked. Anything else?
I just had one question for you, Ben, that you mentioned a few moments ago about a direction towards maybe a 75-25 split, or it's going to take a long time to get there. Can you help clarify that understanding for me? And if there's a certain timeline you were thinking about,
So we're building it out, but as Yoko said, in 10 years, the employees had not had an increase in healthcare
Understand.
premiums. So understanding the partnership with the city, the direction I gave was to, and this time with the premium increases coming, is to have the employees start sharing in that cost burden with the cities to get to a proper ratio. And what that ratio is, we're still looking at the data, but by 75-25, with the ratio sitting a little bit above 80% city towards staff, the other side with staff, I'm trying to get to the right balance to where the city's not having a disproportionate amount of the burden of healthcare. So we're moving in that direction to have the employees bear more of the cost of healthcare at the appropriate level, which we're working to get market data to show that.
yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Very good, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you all
Yoko.
very much.
Thank you, Ms. Penley. Next up is item C3, receive a report and discuss updates to the minor home repair program.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Jennifer Rainey, Assistant to the City Manager. And I am bringing back the minor home repair program updates. At the August 6th council meeting, I believe there was some discussion about the minor home repair program. So at Councilmember Neal's request, bringing that back to discuss. As a reminder, the program objectives were to bring a single-family owner-occupied residence into compliance with the city's residential property maintenance standards, to ensure we're protecting the health and safety of residents and/or the neighborhood, to provide for accessibility modifications. So maybe that's a ramp or modifications to make their home more accessible, and improve the livability of the property and/or the neighborhood. And all of that when an owner-occupant lacks sufficient financial resources of their own to make that repair. So this program was recently updated. I brought that to you in July, and those recent updates include a grant of up to $5,000 with no project total cap. So that was previous program required that project total cost cap, and now that is not in place, and a grant can be provided for up to $5,000. We also removed that cost matching restriction. So previously, the residents would have to pay a certain amount, and then we would match that amount. The eligibility has also been updated, and that was in July via the market home value and the homestead exemption as verified by DCAD data. And for 2023, that average market value that the property would need to be below is $395,455. So that program, if somebody qualifies through the many qualifications, then the program or the project would go to receive 3 quotes reviewed by our city contractor for applicability and selection. The city would then pay up to $5,000 with the resident responsible for any additional cost. And then the city contractor would regularly visit during that project for oversight. And the impact on seniors, I know, was the main concern, or I believe was the main concern. So I wanted to just really touch on that and make sure we fleshed that out. So the current eligibility is via the market homestead value, the market home value and the homestead exemption, and that's verified through DCAD data. Seniors are currently eligible if they meet those requirements. So if their home is valued under that $395,000 and they have that homestead exemption on their property, then they currently qualify as long as the property repair meets the qualifications of the minor home repair program. I know there was discussion about the potential of adding senior citizens or increasing senior citizen eligibility. There's some opportunity there, but I would want to make sure that we're understanding that if we were to add an either or eligibility where the current home, where it's based off of either current home value or an aged verification, whether that's ID or some kind of check like that. If we do an either or there is concern that that may increase the number of higher home values that would be eligible. As of the recent program changes since mid-July, late July, this program has received a little bit more increase, an increase in interest from our residents, had about 10 to 15 calls. As I shared in July, our goal was to share that information with our code enforcement officers. So as they're out in the field, they meet with a resident that has questions or has a concern with their house but can't afford it. So code enforcement officers are now providing that application. That application has been translated into Spanish as well. So we've got it in English and in Spanish so that they're able to provide that. And same with our CSRs at our front desk. Our CSRs are able to provide that. So we've had about 10 to 15 individuals who have expressed interest. I've talked to them over the phone about the program. Out of those, or maybe more if code enforcement officers or CSRs have shared those applications. Out of those, we've received 3 applications. All 3 of those applications have been from individuals that are 65 or older, as verified through their exemptions. So I do believe at this time it is working as intended, but if we wanted to explore opening that opportunity for eligibility, for greater eligibility, we could. But out of those 3 applications, all 3 of them are eligible for a senior exemption on their taxes, and that's verified through that DCAD property tax data. And we've got 1 application that's in process and getting quotes, 1 application that we're still going back and forth trying to get all of the application information to verify eligibility, and then 1 that didn't qualify because of their past due taxes, multiple years of past due taxes. So that's providing kind of an update and then introducing that discussion topic for you, Councilmember Neal, as well.
Very good, thank you.
Absolutely.
Council, any questions? Councilman Roman? Councilman Reed? Aaron? Jackson?
I do. Can you quickly just say, what are some of the qualification requirements? Is there an income requirement?
There is no longer an income
No
requirement.
longer,
So it's
okay.
based primarily off of that property tax value, so that the house has to be a single-family detached dwelling unit. They have to be an owner occupant, so they would also need to have a homestead exemption, and that's to verify that they are the owner occupant. That property value should be below that average annual market value for a single-family home. And so for 2023, that's that $395,000. It has to have that active homestead exemption, and it can't be in violation of any city codes except for the ones they may be applying to fix or to remedy. And then it can't, there's a few other things. All persons have to sign an affidavit or sign the application saying that they would plan to live there for 3 years. It can't be somebody that's ready to flip their house. We've had a little bit of interest in properties that are planning to sell within the next 6 months, and it's maybe the realtor calling and saying, hey, we'd like some information on this so that we can prepare our house for the market. So it can't be something that they're not planning on residing there over
And
the
if
next
you're
3 years.
homesteaded, you've lived there for at least a year.
You should, yes.
Right? So anyone of any income status or age, as long as they are homesteaded and they will live in the home for 3 more years, if they have cast iron pipes under their house and the cast iron pipes are busted and their toilets aren't flushing and showers aren't draining, feasibly they could apply for this program, get some quotes, and the city could help pay for those repairs.
Up to that $5,000,
Up to the
yes.
5,000, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Neal?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this back and
Absolutely.
adding some clarification. And as much like I had mentioned in previous council sessions, my concern is for the seniors. As many of you know, we have senior residents who have lived here in their homes for 30, 40, 50 years. Many of them are on maybe on fixed incomes. And simply by the mere fact of them living in their house for 30 or 40 years, that valuation of that property increases quite a bit. And it's quite easy for those to be over the $395,000 limit. So I just was hoping we could have some sort of flexibility, even if it's on a one-by-one consideration or something like that to help those seniors, as opposed to just saying, well, your home's valued over $395,000, you don't qualify. So I just wanted to know if we had any flexibility at the council here that might be able to help in a situation where somebody's lived there for 40 years and they're through no fault of their own, has increased from 100,000, now it's $800,000 home and living on a fixed income, so they could use a little help. So that was only the points I was trying to bring forward, so.
Very good. Anything else?
Yeah, I think I hear your point there, and I guess the only, like, if we add, like she was saying, like an or, like, you know, it's the property value or your age. You know, let's say we end up in a situation, given that there's already been interest without really any marketing, and we end up in a situation where we have to decide between how we're going to use the last $5,000, and there's two people. We have one who's got a home valued at $300,000, who's a senior, and we have somebody else living in a $1 to $2 million home who's also a senior. In that situation, like, how would you then decide that? One would think, well, this program is sort of designed for the individuals who may not have enough money, and so you would probably go with the one with the lower. But that's where I worry that there might be, like, there just may be too much interest maybe to a more expensive home that maybe they've lived there for a very long time, and it requires maybe quite a bit of repairs, and so all the money ends up being shifted to a specific area of the city where it was more so designed for the area that was kind of much more lower income, and you know, right, like they could be on a fixed income as well. And so I just worry that the appearance of somebody benefiting from this type of program who has a significant house valuation just might look wrong if somebody else finds out that, well, there's no more money because it was ended up being used by somebody else. That's just my only concern, because it was really intended for the people of lower income. And the only reason we stopped using the income verification was because it was too burdensome to verify that income. It required, I think, tax returns, pay stubs,
Bank
statements, other things like that. And so to allow us to not have the time, or we didn't have the time to do all of that verification, and we partnered with another organization to do that, but it's not something that they really do, so we kind of lost that ability to put that work on them. So as we're thinking about our resources and how we were going to implement this program, we thought the easier approach would be home valuation. That's kind of where it came from, but that's my only concern with doing that.
Well, you could certainly be considered lower income. You just happen to live in a home that's appreciated in value so greatly that you're no longer qualified. So.
Councilman Bear?
Has the city searched for any other outside organizations to run something like this for us?
That's a great question. I believe that was done in the past before my arrival.
Yeah, it was done by MetroCrest Services initially, but it wasn't.
What I'm saying is, have we searched for another organization that does this kind of thing and we haven't found anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct, okay.
There's not a huge market for it because it's extremely burdensome administratively. That's why MetroCrest Services, even with the contract we had, did not wish to continue with it. So we had to simplify the model, which was the median home price, and made it much easier for us to administer it. A lot of times we see this program with the most activities after a bad storm, when you have lower valued homes that may need a helping hand to get back up and running. And that's where we saw this the last time, where the program was very heavily used. And then every now and then it's gonna be something that's a quality of life issue, such as a water heater, something like that, to where it makes it tough to stay in your home.
Councilman Reed?
Is there an opportunity to challenge the DCAD value? Because DCAD isn't the most precise. And if you're gonna cut it off at, the average market value, what if someone's, DCAD value is 398,000? And, the history I have with DCAD is it's a guess. So whether it's the ability to have an appraiser come in and look at the property and give a proper market value, something along those lines for properties that are on the cusp.
That could be something that we could explore. believe DCAD was kind of a two-stop option, is that it also has that homestead exemption or the senior or disability exemption, being able to verify that in one stop. But that's something we could explore. I think that might increase cost. My concern would that be, it might increase cost, whether that's for us or for the resident, if they now need to pay for evaluation on their home
Yeah.
prior to getting this.
Yeah, an appraisal is
repaired.
about $400, give or take. So if it were the difference between being eligible for a $5,000 grant, it might be something, at least if the option is available, it might be something that is worthwhile.
Mayor and council, a simple solution, I like simplicity, would be just to give us a range of variance from the average home price, so plus or minus 5%. That way, if they're close, that may solve it. But otherwise, I'm trying to not add additional steps to prolong the process. Especially some of these repairs need to be done immediately too.
Right.
And so to me, if that's the council's direction of give it more flexibility, plus or minus 5% should get us to that. If you've got that kind of differential range after that, that's a different issue in a lot of cases. But that would be a simple solution to achieve that. If somebody's close, that way there's not just a firm line, there's a little bit of flexibility. But that's an easier way to, I feel like, accomplish what you're asking for.
Okay, that sounds good.
I was going to say 2.
Oh, but yeah,
Pick
whichever.
any number the council would like.
2%.
What, you all are the ones voting on it, so.
Let's see, 10% would be.
Well, there's not,
1,000.
there's not action. We're not taking
No,
action.
no, it's not action, but it's your decision, not mine.
So, the purpose of the program is to help residents that need help.
Yeah, lower income.
There are other cities that have somewhat similar programs. I'm looking at one in Plano right now called the City Great Update Rebate. There's a number of different provisions and requirements, but their program actually won a 2016 award from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and has some similar provisions in it that ours does, but it may have a little bit of a different purpose. It's more about updating as opposed to repairing broken stuff. I think ours is more about repairing broken stuff. But it might be good to know, if you don't already, what types of programs in this arena other cities are offering, just to see, is there something we can do better? Or are we doing good enough, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So many of the programs that are out there are by our peer communities that are populations over 50,000, so they are eligible for CDBG funding.
Right.
That changes the game just a bit. When
does.
you've got some flexibility in funding, CDBG grants are significant and time intensive, staff intensive. They do provide funding for the communities to execute those projects, but they also tend to have staff capacity to handle that through those funding. When I looked at
Understood.
smaller communities, there were some peer communities that have actually mirrored theirs off of our previous minor home repair program. And others that had similar grant-like capacities where it was maybe fixing a fence or some maybe smaller projects, exterior, less intensive, like you mentioned, the
Right,
pipes and things like that. It's more fix a fence so the dog doesn't get out or so that it's not laying over after the storm.
Yep, okay, very good.
But just to clarify, this is not specifically targeting repairs. It could be renovation. It could be someone who has, or is it?
It's pretty close to repairs. I know that language, and I could pull the language in the application in the packet. I believe it's pretty specific on eligible repairs or eligible projects are, they must bring the dwelling into compliance, protect the health and safety, provide for accessibility, or improve the livability. Those tend to be, examples of that tend to be general repair projects, siding, trim replacement, fencing repair replacement, exterior door replacement, house painting. If it's peeling and a code enforcement type of concern, not just you now want green trim instead of white trim. Similar with roof repair or replacement, we have one of our applicants has a roof damage from the storm who has water entering their attic area now. Tree trimming or removal, not just for beautification, but from that code enforcement standard, that code side of things. And then walkway repair or replacement, window replacement. Things that are ineligible are the remodeling services. it's got to be some type of disrepair or decay, not just
Okay. Thank you.
because you like that.
We good? Very good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to read us into an executive session. We're going to have that downstairs in the city manager's conference room. So council will convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.074 personnel of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the appointment of the city municipal court judge. The city council will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072 to discuss the sale of real property located at 2837 Ermine Way. City council will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code section 551.072. Discuss the sale of real property located at 13330 Veronica. City council will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code section 551.072 to discuss the sale of real property located at 1349 and 1399 Valley View Lane, and city council will convene in closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code section 551.071 for the purpose of seeking confidential legal advice from the city attorney regarding Firehouse Theater facility use agreement. Let's get down there as quickly as we can. We'll get started. We're not going to get through all of it, but we will make a dent.
Hey, Mayor, I have